Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and we are back again this week. Everyone's favorite time of the year. It's ProQuest season. I know I personally love like all of the RTN ProQuest seasons. There's nothing more fun than like every single week you get to travel to some other city. I mean, for us at least, we're pretty lucky in the fact that there's a tournament every single weekend, normally two. And so you get to travel all across different states, go play for some decent stakes at like an event every weekend. And I know every time one of these seasons rolls around, I just look forward to every single weekend because it's just fun. Like I love competing. That's why we play the game. Is at least we're not casual, so like we love to go out, compete, and try to win. And having the opportunity to do that semi locally every single weekend, usually twice a weekend, is just the reason we play the game. But Lucas, I know unfortunately you did not have any tournaments this weekend. So you did a lot of worlds prep and practice, right? That's what your week was.
Yeah, so I still got school going on. I have my midterms this week. Although next week I am off pretty much all week. So Cody's going
I'm
to be
putting
happy.
you to work.
Cody's going to be happy
We're
with
putting you to
me
work.
next week. But he should be happier with me because this week I have been doing a little bit more work. I've been in the Discord active. I've been working on a few things. But yeah, it's been mostly just Worlds prep, testing a bunch of decks that are not decks I'm going to play at Worlds, and then deciding that all these decks are broken, and then switching off of them after sub 10 games.
It's the illusion,
Yeah.
the illusion of, hey, this deck feels pretty good. Played against Dio.
Dude, it's the Rune Blade of not the illusion.
Viserai. You played against Dio Viserai, you're like, deck's not as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this deck does super powerful broken things. It has all these sweet game plans, and then you're like, oh, but it just doesn't matter. Like, I just got hit by it for like 20 and then 30 and then game on like turn 3.
Yeah, you should not have told me that you have a whole week off. We are putting you to grinding work for Worlds.
Oh,
so many matchup grindings that you're gonna have.
Dude,
to do.
I'm gonna have more homework than I do during the school year.
I'm gonna make a schedule just for you, and then what you're working on every day, and we're just gonna block out like 8 hours of a day of grinding.
Devastating.
The only one on the team that without a job, putting them to work. Let's go.
No, I still have a job.
No. New job.
I have to take work off all week.
Yep. On vacation. Okay.
Yep.
Dan, you had a pretty exciting weekend that unfortunately no one got to see really. Because we just didn't have any stream coverage of DC. But you went out to DC. Sounds like you had a great weekend. How'd it go?
Yeah, no, it was like I drove down with my buddy Christian. He's just jumping back into FAB after like a 1.5 year break or so. Yeah, we drove down late Friday night. So this was a Battle Hardened and then a ProQuest Plus event. The Battle Hardened was sealed Rosetta, and I think the last time we talked about sealed, I thought I was originally a hater on the format, and it was better than I gave it credit. And I now very much feel that this is by far the best sealed set we've ever had. I'd be happy if every competitive event ever was sealed Rosetta. I don't think it's an issue that 90% of the field plays Florian. I think the decks are different enough, and like there are ways to beat the bombs. I don't know. Seal was cool. I opened my pool. It didn't look flashy at first glance, but then I went through it and it had like a very good pitch stack plan. I had 1 red incantation, and then I had 2 splintering deadwoods and a couple sigils. So basically my game plan every game was just like keep my health high, and then as soon as I get to my first pitch stack cycle, I just make like 10 rune chance a turn. And you can't really block 10 rune chance a turn, so it doesn't matter if I'm like lower on cards in deck. I'm just gonna close with Arcane. And that works pretty well. I won all my games except for one against Michael Fang, of course. This will be a theme this weekend. I don't remember that game. I think it was tight. Whatever. I made top 8. So did my buddy Christian. That was pretty hyped because we drove down together. Top 8 draft was interesting. I had a tough choice between Aurora or Verdance, and I went the Aurora route. I think Verdance would have worked out better. My deck kind of sucked. It was like almost a good deck. I haven't drafted this set too much, and every time I've drafted it, for some reason, I've been forced to play Wizard. So my deck was okay. It was like a full cheese deck. I had like so much Rune Chant Gen that I was just trying to like chip my opponent and then kill them with Arcade. With like very below rate plays. and it worked for 2 rounds. I beat Nocelio. I almost punted that game. I got my health lower than I should have. Then I got the rematch against Michael. Different decks, obviously. His deck was significantly better than mine, but I did 3 Arcane when he was at 3, so he couldn't kill me, and I won. And then I was waiting for the finals. My buddy Christian was playing Mara in top 4, so it was like very close to the car taking home all the prizing, but Mara got him, and then I play her. Um, Again, I'm playing like a full cheese deck, right? Like if she decomposes, I just lose, I think, and she decomposes on turn 3. And then I pivot to like a full OTK strat. Like it was such a we had a really cool opening. My first turn was like the actual best hand possible for my deck. I did 20 damage off of 5 cards. After reflecting, I'm not really sure how I lost after that, but it wasn't even close. Like I kind of got demolished. But I did that. She stabilizes. She double decomposes by turn 3. And then I'm at like 4. She heals up to like 8. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll play this Dirge, makes 3 rune chance pass. And then I block 3 cards. I like play Dirge, make 2 rune chance pass. I do this for like 4 turns, but it's not enough. So I got second. That was a ton of fun though. I always love traveling to these events, right? The slightly bigger stakes. You get everyone's excited to be there. There's cool prizing. We got the Mistblade playmats. Took the funny top 8 photo. That was the Battle Hardened. I don't know if you want to discuss a little bit, or I can go into the PTI event.
No, do the PTI event.
The ProQuest Plus event.
The
Yeah,
ProQuest,
yeah.
dude, it's ProQuest Minus. Oh my god! For top 8, I got a Rainbow Foil Betsy. Like what? Like that was my prizing.
So
Okay.
what did you play? This is CC, right?
Yeah, it's a CC. I played Aurora. That's pretty much the only deck I've played since Rosetta release. As I do, I always get hooked on the first thing I try. And Aurora is really fun, to be fair. Like, it's got all the tools. It's very powerful, as you can see by the 20 whatever ProQuest wins. Very consistent. Yeah, really like the deck. I played that for ProQuest Plus. I win the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then I play against my good friend Michael Fang again on Enigma. And what I really like about Michael is he's like very forward with his information, even like as we're about to play the game or before. So we're like discussing our thoughts on the matchup because he played Aurora at like the first calling event. I think he was on stream and stuff. Yeah, he felt that the Enigma matchup was much better than I did, and he proved it to be true. I think that game I just got like completely rolled. Like he opened like very hot, and my hand just didn't function. I like opened with a channel, kept it around, and then I draw my hand, and it's 2 more channels. And when Enigma has like 2 auras on the board, that hand does like actual nothing. Like you just lose the game on the spot. So that's what happened. So I lose that one. I went out the rest. I don't remember the game super well. I did it right up in our Discord if you're in there and want to see it. Some tight games, if I remember correctly. I played like 3 mirrors. 2 of them played combo against me, and they resolved like pretty big combos, but it wasn't enough, which was surprising. I don't know. Those games went well, and then I make top 8. First round of top 8, I play against my good friend Michael Fang again. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take out. So the first game I like handicapped myself on purpose. I played like all the tech for CYB, even though I knew he wasn't playing CYB. He like told me before the game that it was Mara's deck, and she tends to play like the aggro archetype for illusionists. But so the second game, I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'll take out all the tech. We'll get him this time. He previously was going first in the matchup, but because I went second after winning the die roll, he chose to go second, and I think that made a pretty big difference. But we actually had like a pretty sick game, I think. I probably could have done something better. But I think we played like 20 full rounds of Flesh and Blood, and it was like a lot of tension. Like, should we fight over this aura? Should I set up? Should he set up? There's like a lot of like taking those 50-50 gambles. Like, does he have CNC or is he going to slam an aura and I need to set a card? And every time I guess wrong, and it just kind of accrued over the game. And then I slowly died to a bunch of Phantasmaclasms and CNCs. And that was the end of my run. And I got a Rainbow Foil Betsy. And that was cool. Much different pricing between the 2 days. I got like $1,500 in a PTI the first day, and then a Rainbow Foil Betsy and some tickets the second day.
Yeah, it couldn't even be the new the ProQuest.
That was the worst part.
Actual pricing. Yeah, so it sounds like Fang had your number all weekend.
Yeah, it's weird because I beat him in the semifinal of the Battle Hardened, which is
You
like
beat him in the, like,
a
actual
much bigger
game,
deal
not
than
close.
the rest. But he also, a shout out to the winners too. Shout out to Mara, she won the Battle Hardened, and then Michael Fang did end up winning the ProQuest Plus. So it worked out.
Michael has a similar record against me. He beat me the first 5 times we played in tournament, and then the first time I beat him was a winning in for top 8 of US Nats. So we lose every game, and then just the one that matters the most, we win.
No, Michael and I have quite a extensive history of eliminating each other from tournaments at this point. I think I was previously ahead, but after this and like the Heavy Hitters ProQuest season where he like knocked me out of like 3 top 8s, I think he's got my number now.
He just beats me every time.
Nice. He's quite good at the game.
He's all right.
Yeah,
no, obviously.
Maybe traveling to every event actually makes you good at the game.
Yeah. I learned a lot though. A lot of good talks with everyone out there. Fun meeting people too.
That's great. I played in an actual ProQuest at my locals. I was going to go to DC, but it was my girlfriend's birthday, so we hung out instead, which was great. So Sunday I went to the Portal Games, which is pretty close. I always go to their usually their event, and it was a draft. And somehow I managed to win the whole thing, even though I think I'm pretty garbage at this draft format. I sit down for the first draft, and I go, okay, I will just not draft a Cilio, and we'll be fine. And I sit down, and I go, and I'm picking Earth cards, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I'm playing Verdants, because it looks like a Verdants deck. But it was like, I'm going to heal a bunch and go to like Fatigue Verdants, is kind of how I drafted it. So I had like 5 Fertile Grounds, and I had Bloom to like, loop a bunch of times, and I had a bunch of 3-for-7s to throw, and I played that. I went 3-0, but every game was super close and down to the wire, and I was like, okay, well, I kind of don't want to do that again. So I sit down, and I start drafting Verdants again, because that's just kind of how the packs broke. I passed an Arcane Seed so that I could guarantee that I was Verdants, because I could make the guy Florian, so I knew I was going to be good. Otherwise, I could have made the guy Florian because I was passing like amazing Earth cards. And the draft just goes horrendously for me in draft 2. The only reason I managed to like squeak out wins is I opened a tree in pack 3. And I was like, oh, I'm so bailed out. Like, I think I had 4 red spells in my Verdance deck. And none of it mattered because I just played a tree every game and then won immediately. So I don't know. I think that should be in the expansion slot. That seems way too powerful to be a draft. Dalton was the only person I lost to. He was also playing Verdance. Then I go to top 8, and well, I mean, you've already played Verdance twice. You're definitely not gonna not play Verdance in the top 8. But I open up Comet, and I'm like, I am not an Acilio gamer. You could be an Acilio gamer next to me, which they ended up being. And then I saw no Earth cards, so my deck was just spells and like 3 decomposes, and it was like good enough. Managed to get there. I almost punted in the finals. I was like gonna play a Blossom, and I forgot that it only cost 2. So I was gonna block it away where I took 1 damage, and then I was like, hold on, let me think for a second. And I looked at my cards and read them again, and I said, wait, this costs 2. Okay, I will block with my 3 block instead. I will keep this yellow that blocks for 2. And that won me the game legitimately. Like, I couldn't, there was like a turn, like 3 turns later where I had to no block go to 1, and I wouldn't have been able to make that play if I had blocked incorrectly. But it was sweet. I was pretty excited to get my invite out of the way, so I don't have to worry about it going all the other ProQuests. I can just do whatever I want. I can mess around. Hopefully I'm going to try and win again, because, it's kind of nice getting a gold foil, and this was like a 1K, so I got like a case of Rosetta afterwards with my Sore Credit, which was sick. But yeah, nice to knock the first one out of the way. Excited to go to the next ones. Maybe I'll actually learn how to draft this format. It'd be nice. If anyone has any tips in the comments on how to actually draft this format, that'd be great. Every time I do it, it just kind of sucks. Like,
I've been like really good at identifying the open seat, but I don't know how to build the perfect deck payoff yet.
Yeah, I do find that finding the right seat I should be in seems pretty easy.
Yep.
But I just keep drafting 2-1 decks.
Yeah, I guess you can't actually know the right seat unless you know like what the final product should look like. Like, even if you're in the open seat based on what you're seeing, like you might be able to not be able to build the deck that you need to win all the games.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because like especially also like the open seat sometimes is like you're being passed into by the same hero. They're just taking different cards.
Yeah.
So it's like you actually want to be in like the open archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just can't make them go 3-0. It's just like I got lucky enough to make it happen at the time that it mattered, but in all my prep, I'm just like every deck I draft, this deck's gas. 2-1, 1-2.
Yeah, I think I've only 3-0'd one draft of Rosetta.
Yeah. This has been very constant. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and almost everyone has the same experience. They're just like, man, going 3-0 is like really hard.
Yeah. I 3-0'd one tournament, and since then I have failed every time.
And it happened to be the first tournament, so
it happened to be a good 1-2-3-0, but since then, no dice.
We're just watching everyone in the Discord drafting and practicing draft, and no one goes 3-0. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. 3-0 decklist channel is just blank.
Internally, yes.
Internally, yeah.
Internally.
Well, as always, Dalton has like 40.
Yeah.
Other than him, he doesn't count.
Cool.
We just assume he always 3-0s.
Okay, so we did get stats on what happened at ProQuest. So let's talk about that because I think it's pretty interesting. I think, and I might be wrong on this, so like people, you feel free to correct me. I think this feels like a lighter ProQuest week than what we're gonna have moving forward. Like, it seems like there wasn't as many on this week as there will be like next week, this weekend, and the weekend after. So I would expect these numbers to like go a lot higher of number of heroes at 1 and LL points being awarded, etc.
Yeah, it was only like 10 heroes that actually won a ProQuest this week, which is very low.
Yeah, in the numbers, like the actual numbers of that one seem low to me. I would expect more ProQuests than this to happen. So, and I talked to a lot of people like in different areas, and they all said that they didn't have ProQuest this week, but they do next week. So, take it as it will. But the first hero, the most winning hero, is Aurora. Definitely not surprised with that. Got 23 wins this week. Aurora's adoption rate is huge. Everywhere I go, I just like at my locals, half the people are playing Aurora immediately. Like the day that it was legal to play, half the people played Aurora.
It's just,
it kind of makes. Yeah, it makes sense as well, right? Like it's a good solid aggro deck, and like there's no lists that are super refined early for any heroes when they first come out, but Aurora is like most of the stuff that you could reasonably include is pretty reasonable. So
yeah, if everything calls 0, your deck's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's just like it's hard to make a bad Aurora deck, even if people aren't necessarily making the best yet. Like you just play the good lightning cards and the good Runeblade cards, or sometimes just the good lightning cards.
Yeah, dude, I play like one Runeblade card in my deck.
Yeah. Yeah, you put like a lightning Runeblade card. Like,
yeah, and it's strong. I mean, it has some adjustableness on how combo you go and how non-combo you go based on like matchups and what you expect to see. So no surprise to me that 23 Auroras. I would not be surprised if Aurora was the most played hero at all of these ProQuests. We don't get that data, but I would not be surprised at all. Followed very closely by Enigma at 22 wins, where I do think Enigma was way less played than Aurora, but the people who play Enigma, like Enigma's so strong that their likelihood of winning that tournament is really high, in my opinion.
Yeah, the deck's really
I agree. Yeah, think she might LL. It's like possible, right?
No, not remotely possible. She has like 126 points or something like that. Like,
I thought she got like 180 or something from week 1. So if what you're saying is true, and she gets like 5 to 10 more wins,
she would have. No, she only had like 200. She only has like 200 points right now. She needs like need like 800 points to LL.
For sure. I think it's 5 points per win.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you imagine a world?
Or maybe that's the number's wrong. She must have won like a calling or something.
Yes.
She won Leon.
That's right. Okay. No, I'm just a fool. You'd have to win like 50% or so.
Yeah. I don't see that happening, but
yeah.
Can you imagine
I saw the numbers like, oh wow.
Where we fly to Worlds, right?
No.
But there are ProQuests going on that weekend.
Yeah.
And a deck gets banned the week of Worlds.
Wait, is there a ProQuest the week of Worlds?
The weekend before
like
Worlds.
We're flying, yeah.
Oh, the weekend before. Oh, like you arrive in Japan and then you
check your phone and someone gets LL. Yeah.
Dude, you're like only deck in your bag as Enigma.
Yeah. There are a couple of heroes that like, so people expect Dash IE.
Dash IE is kind of like sus, man. Like she could very reasonably LL, right?
she should LL.
Everyone thought it was like guaranteed, but now it's like, oh, maybe
she might be one of those like 5 points off type of deals.
yeah, like 998.
Yeah. But like, imagine if you like decide that you think she might be the play for Worlds. Like, you just like can't ever. Like, imagine you're building a deck and you're like, I think I have a bad Dash Shahi matchup, but then you're like, oh wait, nobody's gonna be working on this hero because there's like a 40% chance that it's legal.
Yeah. So there's a world where, let's say there's way more events, like Azalea could LL. She's like 300, 400 points away, something in that range. That's unlikely, probably never not going to happen, but it could. There's a real world where it could happen. But can you imagine, like, you're just like, I'm going to take Azalea to Worlds, and then like you get on your airplane and you fly and you land, and then you open your phone and it says, oh, she was the most winning hero this week. She's banned immediately. I can't play it at Worlds in 5 days from now. Like,
no, dude, it's like literally, it's like the only, it's like the only thing you pack in your bag is you're like, because you know a lot of players will only pack one thing because they're like, I don't want to let myself pivot.
Yeah,
I'm only here to play. I don't need to sell cards, anything like that. And then you're just like, oh, let's see if I can sell these Azalea cards and buy something else.
You
I mean, you get to see it coming, but it is a little strange.
It's like, oh, she needs 200 points. She's not gonna get 200 points this week, and then she just like spikes and win that week, and you're just like, no. I just think it's funny that you could potentially land in Japan and just your deck is invalid.
I mean, I do think there maybe should be like a small buffer period for World Championships, maybe like 2 weeks. Just lock.
Yeah, I feel like the majors should be like 2 weeks before.
I think we said that when it was announced too. Like there should be like a 2 to 3 week period where like this is not apply for the Pro Tour.
Because like it's not that serious right now, but like it 100% is not an unreasonable situation for a really strong hero to be very much on the fence like a week before an event. Like if they have it scheduled like this, like imagine if Enigma had like won 3 callings or whatever. And
how many points does Dash IO have? Because that deck might win 50% of ProQuest.
Yeah, not enough.
That deck sucks.
Okay.
Okay. The third most winningest hero was Azalea with 10 wins. So I don't know if the ProQuest double this week and she gets like 20 wins, like that would be kind of a big deal, right? Like she'd be getting close. And I think Azalea is a decent pick, and most areas have like an Azalea specialist. I see. New with 9 wins. That feels high, but I think that, I mean, New's interesting spot, I guess.
It's just a powerful deck, right? Like the Mystic cards are still like so pushed.
Yeah, they're very strong. Viserai at 7 wins feels low to me personally.
Yeah, I think that might be a product of just like, we had the lists last week come out of like the new way to play Viserai that's pretty well known now, I think, with like fewer Mauvrion Skies. But it might not have a super high adoption yet, but I think once, like, because we know Viserai will probably have a high adoption. He's a very well liked hero. It's just like might take a minute for everybody's lists to kind of realize what the actual good way to build the deck is, and then I would expect to see that go up because he's really good. Mm-hmm. That's a very strong hero.
The deck's also a little harder to play than other aggro decks. Like I can usually pick up any aggro deck and be like, oh, this is the math, this is that, and like I see Viserai hands, I'm like,
Oh, it's also this is actually I think a very big deal. It is ridiculously expensive.
Yes,
that deck
makes sense.
To build that deck, it's like over $1,000 by a margin, and it's like all Runeblade cards. So like it's not cards that people already own.
Yeah, so like the boots are $160 right now. Like Creepers is like
Grafts are worth a bunch.
Yep.
As well, and then like a bunch of Majestics. Like I listed like 3 play sets of Rattlebones like last night, and they sold before I woke up. Like they're worth something.
I also think
the new ones.
If you were someone who picked up Aurora when the set first came out, and like you don't play every deck, so you don't buy all the cards, right? Like you're just like you're going to ProQuest to win, but like you're not going to Worlds, for example. Like you're not that level. You're in between. I don't think you're switching from Aurora to Viserai. That like I just don't think you're making that move. So I would, in that aspect, I could see Aurora still having really high numbers, and then Viserai's numbers not catching up. Even though I think Viserai, in my opinion, is a better deck than Aurora. But
I don't buy this.
It's close enough that it's like whatever, right?
I think they both have things going for them.
Yeah.
I think purple is a lot cooler than yellow.
Yeah.
But what
Viserai's also more fun. What are you talking about? You get to put Rune Chants out
Oh,
individual
I think
rune
Aurora is more
chants for
fun.
each one. Come on.
I just want a summer.
I don't even think either one is the most fun rune blade that's legal. I think they're like 3 and 4 for the coolest rune blades right now. So.
Well, you'll be happy to hear that Florian won just as many events as Viserai did. He won 7. I know how excited about Florian you are. Zen sneaked in here with 3. That's a big drop off. Goes from 7 to 3. There was a good game on stream between Brody and another player who was playing Zen, and Zen ended up winning. Bolton picked up 3 wins. Kano picked up 2 wins. So
yes,
maybe Kano,
get him out of here.
Maybe Kano is dead.
One step at a time, baby.
Wait, what? Is he close?
No,
yeah,
he has 2 wins.
Well, he's not going to get there this season, but he is close. I just want him out as soon as possible. Like, I don't care when it is.
KO has 2 wins. Dash IE has 2 wins. Levia has 2 wins.
Get her out.
And then all the other, there's 6 other heroes that all got 1 win. The interesting one in there is like Phi got a win, and Prism got a win, Vincent got a win, Azuri got a win.
Coolest rune blade.
Yeah. But overall, I think this feels like kind of how I had expected it to go, especially before IO comes out. Anything surprising, like super surprising in here?
No, there's like no Warriors or Guardians, right?
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah, well, no, it was. I think it was the first time that a Guardian didn't cash an event. It was at Leon, I think, but it was like the first time I heard this stat. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that it was the first time that a calling had ever happened and a Guardian did not cash.
Oh, did not cash. Okay,
did
that's
not
different.
cash.
Yeah.
Which is what I heard. Again, I'm sure it's misquoted, whatever, but like it makes sense and it's kind of crazy. I think that'll probably change after the Dio deck comes out, but
perhaps
we'll see.
Okay. Anything? So I have 2 pro quests this weekend. Dan, you have 2 this weekend.
I have 2.
I have 2. I'm playing in 1.
Okay, so there's definitely going to be way more pro quests this weekend, for sure.
Yeah, but one of ours are draft, right, Cody?
Yeah, we have one draft, one CC. Yeah. Which would be cool. Awesome. Anything else on ProQuest?
The participation promos are pretty sick. Like seeing that.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with the pricing in general. Like the participation cards are sweet. I wish the heroes were cold foil. Like I just don't know.
I'd rather have anything but those heroes. Like I miss sleeves, which is so sad.
Yeah, you're gonna be in a minority there, my friend.
But I'll actually use the sleeves. Like I won't use a rainbow foil hero ever.
And it's so hard to sell them. Like especially like after week 1. Like I didn't have a ProQuest week 1. Can I like feasibly sell one? It's gonna be hard.
People got their marbles like a month ago at this point.
If they were cold foil, that would be better, right?
No, I mean maybe I don't know. It'd be weird. They just printed marvels.
Yeah, does it just not work anymore because they make Marvel adults in this set?
Yeah, I think you just do something different. Make the weapons cold foil ProQuest promos. You can just do that. If you don't want the armories to all be weapons, you don't have to put them in the set. You can make them cold foil ProQuest promos. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the mat is sick. And getting a second mat is cool. I was pretty happy with that. Yeah. Cool.
I'd rather just get another Rune Ridger's form for top 8.
Yeah. I think the participation prizes are
they could. I didn't hate the skirmish thing of just like having a good card. Like cold foil, like imagine cold foil felling. Obviously, I think that was like a creator promo, but like imagine like cold foil felling or cold foil plow under. Yeah, it's like the ProQuest promo. Like
anything with the heroes at this point for me.
Just anything that we can use and that's not strictly worse than something in a product that everybody opened
you're right. You guys are right. I'm definitely wrong on this one. I forgot that they just now added all the Marvels into the set.
Yeah,
it does make the top 8 pricing irrelevant.
Cold foil heroes were amazing.
Yes.
Until they printed cold foil heroes in every set.
Yep. Nope. That is very accurate. They should look at probably redoing that pricing if they're going to continue to make the Marvel heroes in the actual product, because then the top 8 pricing isn't real.
It's just like a slap in the face. I have so many of those rainbow foils, and it's just like nobody wants them. Nobody will ever want them.
Yeah, no, I agree with Lucas. It should be like a deck card in cold foil.
Yeah.
Or again, you can just like change some of the things, like make them weapons, or make top 8 get something else. Like you can. Sleeves. I know a lot of people didn't like them, but maybe something a little cooler than sleeves.
I mean, if they came back, we would for sure complain about them. But
I like the
I
sleeves.
would
I've
rather
used all the
sleeves than what we
I
have
played them.
now, which is
Oh,
sad.
I have every sleeves that I have ever gotten from any event, including traveling events, ProQuest, everything. They are all sitting on a table over there, all unopened, just piled up. I'm like, these will totally be worth money someday, right? You can
Yeah, I
only
like
get
to
them
just
this
keep them
way.
and look at them.
And they're just like they're worth incredibly less money now than if I just sold them
No,
immediately after
Tunics
the
went
event.
up. Tunics went up.
I cannot find any place where they're more than $50, and they were selling for $50 immediately after the event.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they went down.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that's like the way it works most of the time, though. Is you just like always sell like day of.
Yeah, of course. I just don't like trying to ship like the little box, and you know how it goes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ProQuest and some of the heroes. I want to talk about Enigma a little bit. I've been playing a lot of Enigma, a lot of different versions of Enigma. I think at this point, I think Enigma is very good. I think there's not a good chance I play it at Worlds, though. I think no one believes me. Even the people on the team don't believe me.
He's just lying. He's just like telling a fib. Like he's just like going on public radio on our podcast and telling the not truth.
I have not been so frustrated with Enigma in like a while. But mainly it's because the high amount of play rate of Enigma makes you cannibalize the deck for the mirror in a way that I don't enjoy playing the deck. Like I want to play like a very slow, grindy, blocky game. And like you can't do that and actually win the mirror. Like the way to play, you're just like you need to put all of the attacky cards in the deck and just play like I Big Guardian guy who sometimes put auras out.
Dude, this is the exact same thing you said about Icelander, where you're like, I don't like the way we have to play Icelander for Worlds this year. This isn't my thing. I'm not going to play her. And then it's just like, we know what you're playing at Worlds.
I have no memory of that. I actually do not expect me to register Enigma if it continues the way it is. I love playing the slow, grindy out Enigma version, but the way the meta works, like you kind of have to be punchy. You can't just grind out a lot of these decks. And so I don't know. Deck's really good. I'm probably playing it at ProQuest, to be fair. Like I think I have like really good chances of winning some ProQuests on playing Enigma. But I don't 100% think it's going to be my Worlds deck. Unless, something changes in the meta.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I believe you.
I mean, are you bringing Florian? Is that your Worlds deck?
I have no idea.
That's the issue.
Dude, like I would give so much money to that, like the ProQuest I'm going to, just like last minute announcement, like, hey, we're doing draft. We're sorry. Like, I don't even feel good on draft, but like I don't have 80 like CC legal cards that are together in the same hero. Like,
yeah,
I have no idea what I'm gonna play.
No, I'm with you. I have like a lot of ideas and concepts I want to try out, but I don't have the bandwidth to do so.
Yeah, I have 3 weeks.
I'm just hoping someone like shows me some data that I can apply to what I've been thinking and then make a decision, but I don't know if that's going to happen, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Who
knows? Maybe I'll just play Florian. I enjoy Florian. I think he's really good.
I think if I end up bringing Enigma, I can say right now I'm probably just sacking the mirror, and that's probably not like a good spot to be in. But it's probably
it's hard not to sack something though, right? Like I'd feel fine bringing Aurora, but I feel like I'm sacking Dio.
Dude, Dio scares me. Like I play Dio. We play Dio like in testing.
Yeah.
And we can beat
I mean, that's
Dio.
the real backup plan. If I can't decide, I'll just play the broken deck and try and figure out
there's so many variations and ways to play it and so little time to get real testing with the deck that like I'm just scared someone's going to crack something that like people haven't thought of.
It's like actually unbeatable.
And it makes the deck like from like, oh, the deck is the best deck here, but it's actually just like the best deck up here.
Well, because the thing is, like, I mean, it's no secret, like, what the deck is weak to, right? It's, in general, like, it's been weak to disruption and fatigue.
Yep.
But, like, one of those issues is very, like, some team just figures out how to beat fatigue every single time without fail. And if half the players they play against are just trying to fatigue them, like, they're going to go 7-1. Yeah. Like, they're going to go 7-1 or they messed up. Like, that's, like, pretty spooky, right? Because like in the past, when decks, when people have innovation, it just makes you better in a matchup. But like Dio's weaknesses can be solved in theory in almost deterministic ways because of how the deck just like operates, right? Is like if you could figure out some way to beat fatigue 80% of the time, you don't shit the bed and draft, you are going to top 8 the Pro Tour. Like that's how it feels to me, at least. Like, which is pretty messed up.
Yeah, and then you just hope you don't run into the mirror, and then you TikTok clock each other to death. Like that just sounds. I'm complaining about the Enigma mirror, but man, that mirror does not seem like a world you want to live in. Just, did you get the TikTok clock? No, I got the TikTok
Dude,
clock.
I just couldn't take somebody serious if they're like playing a mirror and they're like, oh, he saw every TikTok clock on the top of his head. Like, imagine like somebody doesn't know what you're talking about. Like, they don't play Flesh and Blood and they hear you complaining about TikTok clock.
Yeah.
Like, that's so goofy.
That is 100% going to be the mirror. Like, it's just going to be like, he hit TikTok clock and I didn't hit TikTok clock.
He TikTok more than I did. Like, come on.
I was going deep like earlier. I'm like looking at Dio stuff and I'm like, hey, they have those magnetism gloves. You could like put the magnetism gloves on and like steal your other
Evo
Dio's
Magneto?
item. Yeah. You could like
that's the
you could steal the opponent's item like for putting the gloves on. And I was like,
but then they TikTok
clock the item that you stole.
It's like, oh, I'm foiled.
I can't imagine.
Just like
I just wish we could experience this now and not have to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah,
for no reason.
I thought it maybe, you know, in the past, I thought it would be cool, you know, if it came out this way in the middle and shook up the meta. But like, I kind of just wish I could play it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wish we could just go to ProQuest and get practice against it and get training with it and like.
Well, I mean, we've seen before they hate solved metas for events for the most part, right? Like they had it for like the start. Like when the game first came out, it's like PT1 was like not a solved meta, but like we knew it was good. Then you go to like PT2 even is like there was a ban like a month before, but like, you know, we knew it was good otherwise. For Worlds the first year it was the same thing. But like since then they've had they've like it has felt a lot more like they've been consistently trying to change up the events and like have each event have some air of mystery to it, which is kind of exciting from like a viewing or a testing standpoint. Like imagine like testing for like Worlds year 1 with what we know now, or like with how we test now. It'd just be like so boring. It's just like whatever. It's like this draft format that we already
we had 3
did.
formats to solve.
But I guess Blitz would be the exception.
Yeah, that was the shakeup.
Like, yeah, but it's like this draft format that we like already have you know tested for, and then that 3 decks that we know. Yeah. Like, come on. But it's a lot different now.
I don't know.
They like switching it up.
The Dio paradox is interesting to me because it's like, so if you can figure out more about Dio than anyone else, you have like huge EV going into Worlds.
Yeah.
But if the mirror, like if Dio is heavily played, then you're playing a lot of mirrors. And that's not going to be a world that anyone wants to live in. Playing Dio mirrors, you're both playing TikTok clock. You're both like whoever hits off the top better, etc. Unless you can find some huge edge in the mirror, but that seems kind of unlikely.
Unlikely.
But if you guess, you're like, hey, I'm going to play Dio, and everyone else who's testing for Worlds is like, well, I can't really figure out Dio. I'm stuck here. Let's play a different deck and beat Dio. And we don't have to worry about like trying to cram all this practice in a short amount of time. Yeah, you can practice now on Talishar and stuff, but it's not the same as being able to go to actual events. And what if a majority of the base then decides, you know what, we're just going to beat Dio. We're not going to play it. And then like we show up and Dio is like 9% of the meta, right? Like now if you put the time into Dio, you're like, I'm topping. You know what I mean? Like it's like this weird paradox where you're like you're hoping other people don't do the same thing you do, but if you think everyone is going to do that, then you do the opposite. Like it's very hard to like figure out if you actually want to sit down and put all the time into it. It's like this weird conundrum to be in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I think it'll have a pretty high adoption rate. I think it's just
nuts.
like
it's like just the base version is nuts.
We've just like seen over and over again that like secrets don't really exist, right? Like I think the best comparison I would give is like Lexi, where like it was different because Lexi had been out for a little bit, like she had gotten her support, but like we hadn't really had any events before Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, yeah, Lexi was the most played deck. It was like obviously the best deck. Everybody knew it was the best deck.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, cool. Like we knew. And some people might have thought like, oh, it's not going to have the highest representation because not everybody's going to figure it out. But like everybody knew. So I would expect it to be similar with Dio. but I don't see it being like sub 10%. But like you said, we could definitely have a lot of people just be like, I'm gonna beat it, or I'm gonna sack it as well. I think is also like something that some number of people will just be like, I don't think it's gonna be that played. It's a new deck. It just came out. I'm just gonna sack it.
Yeah, it's really funny to be like,
I'm gonna play Count Your Blessings Tekla like
there's a world where we go to Worlds, we sit down, and it's like 25% of the meta, and I go, yep, makes sense. And then there's also a world we sit down, it's 8% of the meta, and I go, yep, makes sense. Like both of these options are equally plausible in different justifiable ways.
I don't think so.
I would switch the percentages a little bit.
That's too strong, man. I think it's just ridiculous to say.
Yeah, I think like 12-13% is like literal low end, but
and there's also the world where you're testing against it and you're like, dude, I'm beating Dio every time, and
it's just, and then you show up and it's unwinnable.
You show up, it's unwinnable because they
play
figured
different.
out
they
stuff.
have like this tech item you didn't think about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there's so many items. There's like
there's
50
so many
items.
Yeah,
and they're all like, they all do a thing. Like like the like stupid one that gives all your stuff go again. Like that card probably sucks.
Isn't there a Zen state item? Like some of those are crazy.
Yes, there is a Zen state item. That one costs 2.
Sure,
but there is a Zen state item.
Yeah, the sphere.
You play like the opt item. There's the dominate item.
There's the item that lets you play items. Like this deck's crazy.
Yep. There's the item the other item that lets you play items. There's 2.
Sure. You're right.
There's the 4 ones that just remove a steam counter, put them on the bottom, and do nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to figure out.
I just wish we could figure it out now. Like, why do we have to wait?
They want the surprise.
But it's not a surprise. Like you printed the most busted card that exists now. Of course we're gonna play the deck.
It's definitely on my list. Like it's definitely way up on my list. It's a deck that I keep going back to practice, and
it feels a lot like Zen when Misval came out. You like play one game, you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna keep doing this.
Yeah. If you have like a good fatigue plan and you show up and you either don't face mirrors or not as many people bring the deck because maybe they didn't figure out fatigue and they're like, it actually loses the fatigue.
I mean, you could just win the mirror. Like,
true.
Whatever.
It's just less in your control, right? Like,
yes.
I'd
rather probably play against other stuff.
Yeah, you could put all this time in. You could figure out how to beat fatigue, and like a bunch of other groups didn't figure out how to beat fatigue. They get scared off the deck, and then you're just like, you show up, you're like super rewarded, right? Like that's like the world I think people are trying to live in, right? I don't know. I think the fatigue puzzle is hard to solve. But there's always these like looming comments out there. If you watch a bunch of
I'm sure there's 80 content creators think that they're 140% into decks fatiguing them starting at 65 life.
No, it's whispers. It's like whispers in a video, not about Dio. You'll just hear like they'll just be talking about the meta or the games, and then they'll like whisper off like as a comment. They're like, oh, if you think you can fatigue Dio, you haven't played against good Dios, and they just go back to whatever they were doing. Like it's just like a thing that's like pushed out. But I've never seen a build that like there's no builds out. There's no like videos of. There's no like. No one's giving any specifics how they beat cards in front of cards, but it's just like a whisper that everyone has.
I think it's like, I think FAB players do this a lot, actually. Yeah. It's kind of like me condemning the community of it. Where like, I'm pretty sure that people just like look at their games and they like have a couple games where they perceive negative variance. They'll be like, oh, I boosted 2 max Vs and 2 high octanes. And then they're like, well, that just never happens. I'm like 85% into fatigue. Like, that's just not possible. And then, like, they sit down at the Pro Tour, they lose, like, 3 games of fatigue in a row, and they're like, I've never drawn this bad, after they'll, like, ignore, like, 35% of their actual results because of bad variance. They'll just be like, oh, I win every time, ignoring every game where something goes wrong. And then you're like, okay, what happened in that game? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, that never happens. And it happens 30% of the time. It's just, like, various things that go slightly wrong. It's like, you made a 3 red zipper hit. Like, okay, you should figure it out. Like, who cares? It's not that deep.
Okay.
We should check in 2 weeks.
Yep. Yeah. I think, I'm excited to see what happens that weekend of the ProQuest when
that'll be a fun weekend, at least, to see, like, the effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of, like, just for the novelty, want to bring the deck myself that weekend.
Yeah.
Like,
make some people quit the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put all the things out. No, play the reset version where you just run 3 resets and your whole goal is just to chain 3 resets in a row throughout the turn. You don't have to win the game. You just got to do style points.
Well, surely you win the game if you do that.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
gotta, you're just like
you draw most of your deck, and then
you're like, here's 3 Toma Fyendals with Go again.
Yeah.
That also reset my counters.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into podcast questions. These questions are asked by premium members of our Discord. If you'd like to be able to ask questions of the podcast, watch videos, interact with the team, see tournament reports, find people to practice with, feel free to join in the link below. First question here comes from B-dubs, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it. And it says, if a Talishar is the main source of your testing for mid-level events like PQs, RTNs, etc., what are some steps that you would take to maximize the value of the games that you play?
I can start. We've done this one before. Set some goals, like whether it's in your head or write it down, like why are you playing these games? Just like have a purpose for the games you're about to play. Whether it's just like seeing if like certain cards in your deck should actually be in the deck. Record your games and reflect on your games. Either watch the tape back or just reflect on the question you posed at the beginning. What did you learn? What do you need to do next to answer these questions that you didn't answer yet? It's just a cycle, right? Like have a goal, record, review, set a new goal, and just keep going until you answer all the questions that need to be answered and you can make a decision on your deck.
Yep. I would also say there's a big emotional part of testing. There's like a few different aspects of this. One thing that I'll see that's like a common thing among people who I would say test well is that they can be pretty detached from variance and results. And a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll start testing with somebody, or somebody will be telling me a story about how they were testing for something, and then they complain about things, or they mention, how variance lost them X game, or how they don't like a certain matchup because of X variance, or they just don't like playing it or whatever. But I think it's important to kind of detach yourself from that. A lot of the time, it's pretty unuseful, and you're not really helping anybody by complaining about variance. So if you can just like actually like grow up and look past that and just kind of like look objectively at the game, and try to get your information from that, I think that's a pretty big deal. And the reverse is true as well, because sometimes variance is a big role and you kind of have to understand that. And if you can detach yourself from getting frustrated about the variance, then you can actually learn to embrace it and understand why variance might be useful, or why understanding variance might be useful as well. And then the other emotional thing is just like, don't get upset when you lose, and don't get too high when you're winning, and kind of just keep a balance. If you're losing a lot and you're frustrated, take a break. If you are winning a lot and you're really high in a deck, keep playing it, but don't overestimate yourself. Right? Make sure you're still doing your due diligence and trying to gain all of the value from your games. I've had a few testing sessions where I'll go 0-15, and I'll feel like I learned a lot and I really like have a greater understanding of a deck. And then I'll see me or other people that'll go like 15-0 in a testing session, and I'll be like, okay, what did you learn? And they're like, this deck's broken. And I'm like, okay, so what did you learn? It's like, this deck's broken. It's like, okay, we're going to Worlds. Everybody knows this deck's broken. What did you learn to help us actually do well at the event? So just like making sure that you keep your emotions out of it, I think is kind of something that people don't talk about a lot, but is often the most important thing. Like I will be talking to people and I'll just like not even care about their testing experience if all they're doing is, saying how they feel about certain things, and that they were super upset when this thing happened, and they just think their deck's broken without explaining why, which is kind of ironic coming from me, if you know me. But sometimes you just have to be objective about things.
I'm gonna, for the fun of it, I'm gonna take the opposite approach. Okay. If you're playing a deck in testing and it makes you very frustrated, or you're unhappy when you're playing it, you probably shouldn't play that deck at a major tournament. If in the testing portion it is making you emotional, I think that is a good thing to listen to, as long as what you're listening to is, I do not enjoy what I'm currently doing. I don't like how this deck feels when I play it. I think that is something that you should either get over if you want to get over it. But if you don't, which is acceptable as well, you should probably just not play that deck, because it's going to be even more frustrating in the actual major event. And it's fine to have decks that just like make you frustrated. And versions of Enigma do this to me. Like if I'm playing certain versions of Enigma, I get incredibly frustrated because I just don't like that play pattern, and I don't think that play pattern is enjoyable. And I actually think I'm just playing an inferior version of the deck, and it frustrates me. So like that's a reason why I wouldn't play it. There's been plenty of decks in the past I've played, and I'm like, I don't enjoy this. It doesn't fit with how I view the game, how I want to approach the game, or how I feel my strengths are with the game. And I think playing this is actively detrimental, even if it's very powerful or very strong, because there's like I don't know. This is esoteric, so it might not matter in the grand scheme of things. But there seems to be like if you find a deck that really fits with how you view the game and what you're trying to accomplish and your play style, it seems to operate at a level that's higher than what you could
100%.
typically
It's
do
like, it's
with a
not
deck
close.
that even if it's like the best deck, it needs to be in the range of like AB range, at least for this to occur. But if you can find one of those decks, it's just like it just matches you in every way. It just seems to operate better. It seems to perform better when you play it.
It's like we see this with like different people's play styles. For example, one of my favorite examples to talk about with people is actually you and me. How we both play Icelander.
Yeah.
And we both play that deck like very differently. Like anytime either one of us would be on call, we'd be like, I think we should do this thing. And we would just disagree on every turn, it felt like. But like we both had good results, right? Like we both did well with the deck. And like people, that would see us play the deck would say, this, I like the way you guys are playing this. I think you're playing this really well. I trust you with this deck. And I think FAB is a game where we often think that we're just making the right play and that like what we're doing is like the obvious thing. But like there are so many different ways to play every turn and people just don't even realize it. And I think that honestly, I think real thing is we talked about this on a podcast a while ago. I think everybody's just really bad at this game is like the real truth. And I think that everybody is far enough from playing the perfect line every time that there's a lot of room for people just playing differently can both have very good success with different things. And a lot of that comes with just enjoying what you're doing. And like, the decks that I have done the best with historically have been the decks that I enjoy the most. Like Starvo, for example, is a hero that like I barely played when he was legal. I did very well with him at one tournament and I just like fell in love with him since then. But like I really enjoy playing the hero. Like I love it. And it just feels like I do very well when I play the hero. I went to a couple local events. I did very well with the hero again. I took him to a battle hard and I didn't do very well. But we can just ignore that. But like I think it is a very real thing that like when you enjoy a hero, you play a lot better with it. Like we've just seen it time and time again with so many different people in the game doing that with all sorts of heroes.
I think that's mostly true when the deck's operating well. Like, because I share the same experience. Like when I was playing Fire, like I love that deck. But like with Aurora, like I was in love with this deck, and then I start seeing these hands that don't do the thing, and I'm like, why are you doing this to me, Aurora? Which like I think it's such your expectations high as well. So like, just gotta be aware of that.
Yeah.
But
and I think to circle back to the emotional issue, I think if you're getting emotional about something in your testing, I think it can be good but you need to kind of like hone in on why are you emotional about this thing right now? And like, what is causing this? Because it could be a whole bunch of things. It could be like, you could be frustrating because you don't like how the deck's playing. It could be like a hole in your game that's causing you to be frustrated in this spot that you don't know what to do. It can be a whole host of things. And those are usually really good, like pressure points to then go back, relook at and be like, why do I feel this way about this? What is causing this? And how do I resolve this feeling?
Yeah. I think your emotions are a very good tool to use when testing. I think that you just have to be careful to not let your emotions consume you. You cannot turn to the dark side. You have to let it run through you and see, use it to see things objectively. Like you with Enigma, how you, like you said, like you've been very frustrated with the deck and like you're like, I don't think I want to play this style of Enigma right now. That's reasonable. But if you were like, oh, this deck sucks, I hate it, I just like never want to play it again, I'd be like, bro, I just like don't care about anything you're saying now. Yeah. Like it just doesn't. This feels like it's bad information.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question from Fighting Walloon. I hear commenters talk a lot as if people are constantly thinking about what might be in their opponent's hand. Is this something that pro players spend a lot of time thinking about during a game?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. I saw this here. Dan, you can go first.
Hey, I was gonna say like you play enough, you recognize a lot of play patterns, right? And like, I don't know. I feel like the information is everything in this game, right? Like you have so many ways to use your cards. So like the more you know, the more better decisions you can make. It's like everything about the game I'm like using to deduce what my opponent has. Like everything they say, like the way they move their body, like there's this information everywhere. So yes, that I'm spending the whole game trying to figure out what my opponent has at every point in the game.
Yeah, I think I actually saw this question earlier in the day. I was like just getting up, I was getting ready, like taking a shower, driving to school. And like I was thinking and I was like, I think that most very solid players who have experience on decks agree on how to play, how they want to play most hands when they look at them. Not always, there's always going to be disagreement, but I think a lot of the time people will look at a hand and they will agree on what they want to do. The tricky thing is how to react to what your opponent's doing. And I think that's where most of the skill expression in Flesh and Blood actually comes out. This is more apparent with some decks, right? A deck like FAB might not care as much about what your opponent's doing, right? Even their things that make you react, like their disruption, is usually pretty easy to math out what the best play is. But you play a deck like Enigma, and like literally all you're doing all game is trying to make reads on your opponent and seeing what they'll do next. Like I played a lot of Florian this week, and I'd play against Enigmas that were maybe not the best. And I'd come in with like an attack for like 3 go again and 3 arcane damage, and they'd have like a Waxing Spectre, and they'd like, and I'd make like 1 rune chant on the back off the back end with like a Malefic or something, and they'd like AB3 and then block the Gloom Veil with the card, and then I'd Reaping Blade them, and I do 1 arcane, and they like look at their Waxing Spectre, and they're like, well, what am I doing with this? And they just like let it die. When they could just save their card in hand. And obviously that's an example of clearly like not a very good play, but like I think people will just not realize that like what your opponent's doing should always be influencing what you're doing. Like, you know how you want to play your hand, but you really always have to be guessing and be thinking about what they're going to do. A common line that you see is, you know, let's say you want to block with 1 card. Maybe you can afford to block with 2 cards. You know, your opponent attacks you with a go again attack. They have 2 floating and a card in hand. You can either give the card and make sure that you get your block value, or you can wait and try to block out a Command and Conquer. And those kinds of reads, like Dan was saying, you're always looking for information. You should always be trying to deduce whether or not they have a card like CC. Those reads are what are going to win you games that other players of a similar skill level might lose. So I would say like always is the answer to the question. You're always trying to think about what your opponent's doing. You're always trying to deduce everything about the game from them, because that's like really where you can gain the edge.
Yep. It's every single action and thing that they do on their turn. Your immediate thought after this is, what else do they have in their hand?
Yeah.
Even
on your turn though.
Yeah, even on your turn to an extent, as well. Depending on how they blocked and stuff.
Yeah. I have a good example of that when you're done.
So yeah, on your turn you're doing that. On their turn, you're doing that. You're doing that more than you're doing anything else in the entire game. That is most of the game. If you've played against me at locals, or if you've played at other events, I'm quite often just say out loud what I think people have in their hand, because I find it enjoyable. It's fun. I know in my top 4 match against at the Nationals that, you know, I topped with Chain, I was playing against Michael Fang, and I remember his CNC line. It was like he played like 1 attack, and he was going to play multiple things that turn. And I said, "Oh, there's a CNC at the end of this," off of like the initial play. And he just like looks at me dumbfounded. It's like on stream. I don't know if they had I don't think they had the audio, but it was like round 1 or 2. I'm just like, oh, there's a CNC at the end of this. And it's just like some of those things are stuff that you just pick up after you've played a match a million times, or you've played a deck a million times. There's just like ways certain turns get sequenced, or the way something is pitched or something like that just gives you information sometimes that you don't even know how you got to that conclusion. It's like seeing the Matrix is usually what it's referred to as, is like when you can find these esoteric things outside of those circumstances, which require like a lot of game time and to really get a sense of. You're just trying to figure out what else are they going to be doing based on what they did and what they pitched. This is a constant thing we talk about. Oh, you pitched a red on this turn for this swing, which means I don't have to worry about this card, this card, this card, or this card. I can actually block in this way now. If you had pitched a blue, though, I would have to do this. And like we do that every time we're playing games internally and like practicing. So definitely something you want to be doing all the time.
Yeah. What you first said too is like a reason to mix up your sequencing sometimes. Like,
yeah.
Think about like Aurora with her weapon, right? Like you don't have to do it in the beginning. You could do it at the end, or like, and like Chain is the easiest because he makes action points, but like most people always end on the Rosetta Throne. Like you can throw that second, man. Like,
yeah.
Mix it up.
Well, and
Makes it less
it's
predictable.
like,
Because as soon as you like
and it,
go off of the normal sequence you do, now it's like, oh, something's up. And it's so much easier to deduce because it's like smaller things that, or less things that could possibly be after that.
yeah.
I mean,
We saw this a lot
Go ahead.
last meta with like Zen
Mm.
with his needles, because like a lot of Zen decks would play like CNC and they play needles, and like there's like so much like level 0 is like you always swing the needle first so that they don't expect CNC. But then if it's like if you start not swinging the needle first and they always expect CNC and then you don't CNC them, then you swing your needles last. That's like a big advantage that you can gain potentially. It's like they might hold their blocks in a weird way and they're like expecting to shove their armor in front of your CNC and then you just like needle them and pass and they just like look like a fool. Or you can do the reverse, right? You can like never throw your needles when you have CNC and then you like throw a needle at the start of your turn and then you end with a CNC or whatever it is. But we've seen a lot of those sequencing things in the past be like pretty big deals. There's a few examples I can think of on stream that like it's kind of a game-winning play a lot of the time when you make those sequencing things and you can punish your opponent.
It's actually
when you can hide a CNC or a snatch properly, it's like huge deal.
Yep.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things about playing new is when you play mismatched daggers.
Stupid new.
And so the point is, it's like you actually just start conditioning your opponent. Like this is like an actual idea when you sit down to play the game. You're playing like Spider's Bite, and then you're playing the Misfail dagger. Like and you're just like, okay, I'm going to keep spiders biting, and the idea is like they think, okay, you don't have the blue, go again, and then some random turn you go Misfail, and they go block it, and you're like, gotcha, now I got you prepped. And then so what you'll do is there'll be a turn that comes up, you're like, I need them to block the card, like I need them to do something, and you're just like Misfail, and they go, he must have a blue, this is the only time he ever does the thing, but you're using that knowledge against them to get an extra card in their hand and then juice them like on like a Siren's Call or something on top of it, and you get 2 cards on your needle, and you're just like, they just lose the game because you started the game by coaching them to make that play.
See, this is why I play that. That's all you got. I don't have to deal with any of that.
Yeah, there was a game that there was a game that I remember we were testing Azalea v New, and this was last cycle, and that exact situation came up where like we knew that every turn you like start with Spider's Bite unless you had a Mistblade, and then it was a blue, go again. And I think it was, I don't remember who was playing. It might have been some random person on Tower Trap, but like they swing the Mistblade, and I remember said, you were like, you have to block that because if he has like a persuasive, you just like lose. And we look over at our 1 Azalea armor and we're like, okay, give you the 1 armor. And then he throws a leave no indices afterwards. And we look at our hand and we're like, well, shit, we kind of got cooked here.
Yeah.
We got conditioned.
Yeah. It's cute. Like it's one of the only decks that has it like built in to like just those 2 pieces. But like it's a big part of the game that I don't see very many news use to their advantage. And also they like, if people run double Misfail, I think you're just like punting so much equity in the game by not being able to make that play where you're at least making your opponent guess, well, why did he swing with this one this time instead of the other one? What does that mean? Etc.
Yeah, well, and we talked about this. Actually, I wasn't on this podcast, but people did talk about this forever ago on a podcast. I think Noah was on for this episode, but we talked about this where like Yuanji had a game where he just like used Uzuri for nothing and then didn't even flip the thing in. And it's like now that's a possibility, your opponent knows it is, and so every time they're thinking. And so it's kind of interesting as like a level up from just FAB being all about math is like you can have these really interesting lines where like you take slightly neg situations because there's such a high rate of return if you can punish your opponent for them.
Yep. Cool. Last question here from Millen asks, I will have a PQ after Dash Armory deck releases. Can you give us some tips on how to play versus Dash.io? Maybe even some hero preferences. If you know, it'd be like 50% or more players on Dash.
Hero preferences, I would say, I mean, I can just kind of go over like a lot of the heroes that I would expect to be good. I'm not sure, but I would expect New, Victor, both probably pretty good. Just all the Guardians, I guess. All the Assassins I would expect as well. Maybe not Arachne, but I don't know. Maybe that's just great. Florian as well, I think, has some pretty good tools, potentially against Dio. And then just kind of like anything that can block a lot, right? Like obviously, like we said, somebody might figure out a way to beat fatigue. But like if you're at your local ProQuest and you have a deck with a fridge and some 3 blocks and some D-reacts.
You want 4 blocks.
Yeah,
3 blocks are like whatever. You want 4 blocks.
Yeah, you want 4 blocks. You want 4 blocks. But like if you have those, like you can just try that, and it's probably just better than whatever your race plan looks like.
Yeah, I mean, Dio is so polarizing. She doesn't let you race. Like, she just doesn't let you play the game.
But she's bad enough against fatigue that, like,
yeah. So she
it's
like
the only aggro deck that scales out of control. So you just like, you can't really race it. Like, you could try to race before the items come out, but she also digs through like 80% of her deck in like 4 turns if she wants to.
Yeah, every time you decide to race her, you're essentially making a bet at the beginning of the game. 1 to 2 things are going to happen. You're going to get no booms off the top when you attack me. Like, that's the first. Or if you do, I can out damage you even if you do that. And number 2 is normally not correct. So you're just kind of playing the whole game hoping that they never see a boom off the top.
And that they just like don't see their processors and their high octanes early.
Well, it's not even,
like they can also.
It's pretty hard to race if they just hit a boom off the top. Like, they just hit a boom off the top and you just like lose the race. Like,
yeah, because the high octanes is going to happen. Like, like I was saying, like they actually see like 80% of their deck in like 4 turns if they choose to.
Yeah.
So yeah, put cards in front of cards and hope that at a local level, no one has figured out how to beat fatigue.
Yeah. Sometimes throw like CNCs and erase face, and if you can smash some good times, you could try that. If you're like a guardian.
Yeah.
Warmongers is very hard.
Yeah. And when they try and set up, throw 2 for 6 at them and move on with your life. But that's how if I was going to a local, I wanted to win the PQ afterwards, I'd play a deck with good block value. I'd put extra block value in my sideboard. I'd put like a race face, or other 2 for 6s, like weakest link in my sideboard. And that I would slide all that in. And my game plan from round 1 would be like, I'm going to block you out. I'm going to play these disruptive stuff when you give me space. And I'd be like, prove to me that on week 1, you've figured out how to beat me blocking you.
Yep. I don't think I would count my blessings.
I don't think I'd count my blessings either.
Well, I wouldn't count my blessings now. So
okay. I think that is all from us. We should probably go figure out how to beat fatigue with Dio. That's probably the next thing we should do. I'm going to put you on that for next week. Now that I know you have the whole week off, Lucas, you should not have told me that. Your week is all mine.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.